Hello again, friends. We are going to do our lab for lesson 2 in physical and chemical changes. So today we are doing our research, investigate, and communicate. It's on page 228 of your Be a Scientist notebook. It's about separating mixtures. First, we're going to look at all of our stuff that we have here. Safety goggles. This is going to have to count for right now. Large bowl. This is our bowl. Half a cup of sand. Or a cup of sand, full cup of sand. Half a cup of salt, right here. 200 ml of water, right here. Spoon. Iron filings. Iron filings, if you're here, please. Stand up. There we go. They're right there. Hello. A magnet. And in case you're wondering why I have the magnet in a box, in a bag, sorry. It's because if I get any of these filings on here, I will never be able to get them off. That's how strong this magnet is. So we'll just keep that over here for the time being. A strainer. A coffee filter, which we do not have, but we will be substituting paper towels. And a tray. This will work for our tray at the end. And it'll work fine. Just wait until we go through all of this. You'll see that this will work fine. A tray, though, if you had a glass tray, it would be better. All right, so first, if you haven't, you need to do this right now. You need to pause the video. First, read page 131 of the Science Handbook. You do that now, and I'll just wait. So we're working right now on a heterogeneous mixture of a bunch of different things. So first off, you're going to write your hypothesis. Will different methods of separating mixtures work equally well on the same mixture? And when we put all of these things together, they'll be the same mixture with different individual things still holding their own physical characteristics. Write your answer in the form of an if-then statement. So if you want to go ahead and write your hypothesis, go ahead and pause the video right now. We will move on in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Carry out an investigation. Let's read our lab very carefully. Again, it's page 228. Be a Scientist notebook. Carry out an investigation. Be careful. Wear safety goggles. Use caution to avoid spills. First, we're going to pour 1 cup of sand and half a cup of salt into the bowl. Add a spoonful of iron filings and mix. We're going to record our data. Use the magnet to remove the iron filings. Record your observations in the table on the next page. It's right here. 3, pour water into the remaining mixture. Record your observations. Place a coffee filter in the strainer. Like so. Coffee filter would probably be better, but and I might trim this before we actually do this experiment. Just a little bit. Record your observations. Pour the water into a shallow tray and allow it to evaporate. For this, we're not just going to allow it to evaporate. Because of time and everything, we're going to kind of help it along. I'm going to have a light set up like I did with the little biological creatures growing in the Petri dish. So let's cut right here. I'm going to trim this and then we'll get started. All right, so let's get started on this. Again, we're making a heterogeneous mixture which means that all of our things are going to be mixed up together in one mixture, but each thing is going to maintain its own physical characteristics. So it says, pour 1 cup of sand into a bowl and get it all in there. Ziploc this up so it doesn't get on the floor and ruin the vacuum. Which, if you're going to do this at home, that's what you need to do too. All right, now your half cup of salt. Now, the iron filings. Be careful with this. These iron filings are basically what it is little bits of metal dust. And the reason why they want you to wear safety goggles on here is because if any of this stuff gets airborne, it can get into your eye, it can irritate your eye, it could possibly even make very, very small cuts on your cornea. If you have any open wounds, I have plenty on my hands. This stuff could get in there and irritate it. So just be careful when you're dealing with things like iron filings. All right, and it says mix.
A few minutes later. 1 hour later.
All right, so we now have a good mixture here. You might see some little dark things in here every now and again. Those are not iron filings. Those are actually little bits of leaf and some tree stems and maybe a bug or so. Hey, look at there, some more protein. That got into my sand. We'll just take those out, leave some of the bigger chunks, it's okay. But now, get a close-up shot of that. Hi, Gunther. And this is a heterogeneous mixture. It's a solid, solid, solid heterogeneous mixture. Now, I can't really see the sand in there. And I can't really see the little iron filings in there. I can't. The sand in it itself has little different colored granules in it. So some are white, some are tan, some are brown, and then there's little bits of organic material in there. That's okay. But even though it may look more like a homogeneous mixture of things, it's actually heterogeneous. Everything in there still has its own physical properties. Okay, so let's go to number 2. Use a magnet to remove the iron fillings. Record your observations in the table on the next page. Well, why are we using a magnet? Well, this whole thing is about separating mixtures, right? And if we have magnetic material in here, then it should be pretty easy to understand that using a magnet, especially one as powerful as this, is the right course of action to start removing some of these things. Now, we know that there are 3 elements on the periodic table that are magnetic. Pause it here if you want to try and remember. 3, 2, 1. Iron, cobalt, and nickel. Remember, they're all 3 together on that periodic table. Those are the only elements that are magnetic. So, of course, our iron filings are going to be magnetic. And this is one of those magnets that I keep in my classroom, except it's stronger. but if I were to put another one on the other side of my hand right now, it would hurt. It would pinch. So hopefully this will get us some good iron filings out of this. So let's, ooh, can you get close? It's very cool. You can actually see it if you look really, really, really close. You can hear it. You can also hear Wilhelm. I hope you can hear it on the video. That's pretty cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around real quick. Look at that. It's trapped some of the sand on it. I'm actually gonna stir this around. We're gonna get some of the stuff from the bottom. This is actually working really, really well. I tell you what I might do though. If you'll cut the video, I will get a pan and pour this out on a pan so it's flatter, and we'll just swipe it real quick and see how much we can get. Okay, so instead of a pan, I've decided to use some parchment paper. Get all the little residues out of here. That way I can, with my hands, spread this out a little bit. So here is all of the filings that we got from that magnet. Now, how effective do you think it was using a magnet to get rid of the magnetic properties of this heterogeneous mixture? So what you need to do is, how well did it separate the mixture? Which material did it separate the best? Well, there's your observations right there. Be sure to record them down right here. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use the strainer and the filter to see what we can do to remove the rest of the materials in this. I'm going to get rid of my filings here. I don't want them to get in the way. So we'll remove those, put them over here next to Einstein. Hold on to that, Einstein. So it says, pour the water into the remaining mixture and record your observations. So let's get it back into the bowl. try to make a little. Funnel to pour this into the rest of the bowl. There we go. And that works pretty good. Pour the water into the remaining mixture. Record our observations. In fact, you want to. I wonder what that is going on right there. What is all those bubbles popping up? What do you think that is? Do you think there's a chemical reaction going, or do you think that that's just something physical going on? Can you tell right now the difference between the sand and the salt? Does it look different? Some of you may be asking if those are little iron filings down in there. Probably some of them, maybe. Floating, I don't know. Be a good opportunity to check just in case. Because we like to be thorough. Let's see if we can get a few more of those things to pop up here. Oh, look at that. Look at the... Oh, that was cool. Oh, that's awesome. Can you get it from above? Or... Look at how... There's still some of the magnets still left in there. That's pretty cool. Some of those filings are clinging to some of the dirt that was in the sand, but you can see the filings right there starting to line up. It's neat because it looks like little lines. I'm gonna get them all out of there. Can you actually see this really well? That's cool. And of course it's wet. So it's going to take a few of the sand grains with it because it's kind of pinched off with the sand grains. But that is so cool. That is just really, really cool. You see that? Every time I mix it around, I'm getting more and more. This may be something that I'll do with the class next year, is instead of moving on, because we would have never done this in class, we would have just moved on. But having a video now, we have a little time to actually play around with some of this stuff. I'm fascinated by how the little filings are lining up. All right. It's time to stop. Look at that. I got more. Look at all that. I got more out of there. That's just awesome. All right. So enough playing around with that. We're going to conclude that we do have some magnetic particles still left in here, but not very many. All right. So what does it say now? It says, place the coffee filter in the strainer and pour the mixture through the strainer and record our observations. All set up, and here's where you want to be really, really cautious. In fact, it's best to have a few hands with this. If we were doing this in class, of course your lab partner can hold this steady, another lab partner can grab them on this side, while another person can grab this and start pouring, but we don't have that option here, so we're just going to be as careful as possible and pour this mixture. Try not to let any of this get over to the side. We're We're gonna have some material. Apparently the neighbor dog is outside and Gunther wants out. Okay, we are gonna have some material loss, but that's okay. We'll just leave that right there. And it looks like I did have a little bit of spillage over. You see the spillage on the side right over here, which probably accounts for that right there. So what are your observations with this? What happened? Try and squeeze some more of this water out of here. Coffee filter would have worked better because it's already in the shape of the filter. But we're in quarantine and we do what we have to do. So now back to page 229. How well did this separate the mixture with the strainer? And which material did it separate the best? Well, we still can't see the salt, so we really don't know. I'm going to take this away for a second. But it looks to me like we have a pretty good job of this makeshift filter separating the sand from the water and hopefully the salt, but we're not going to be able to find that out until we set that out to evaporate. So our number 5 is pour the water into a shallow tray and allow it to evaporate. Record your observations. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it under my makeshift light in the other room, and we're going to give it some time and we're going to see if that water evaporates. I want to mark my water line. This would be easier if we had like a aluminum tray or something to that effect, but we don't. So I'm going to mark a little line right in here as to where the water is. And then we'll put it under the light and give it some time and see what we have in, I don't know, a couple hours. So I've set up a little makeshift light, and we're going to let the heat and the light from this evaporate the water and see what we have left. Now we know that there's some little sand that got past the side of the filter, and that was because we didn't have a coffee filter, but that's okay. We should get an idea of what all this will do. When the water evaporates, we'll see what we have left. We'll give it a few hours and see where it goes from there. All right, so a lot of time has passed and we've done some evaporation, and I'm ready to show you the results of number 5. Let me read number 5 again. Pour the water into a shallow tray and allow it to evaporate. Record your observations. Here's where you're going to record your observations. And I can't wait to show you how cool this is. Take a look at those salt crystals. After the water evaporated, the salt remained, and we can actually take some of these and look at how big some of these crystals are. That's pretty awesome. So what we had here is a couple of different mixtures. When we had the sand, when we had all the solids together, we had the filings, we had the salt, and we had the sand together as a solid mixture. That was a heterogeneous mixture. Each thing retained its own properties. It was distributed all over the place. It was really hard to tell if there was anything in there, really, but all of those things had their own separate physical properties, and it was mixed up in a way that it wasn't really evenly distributed all the way through. However, when we added the water to it, the sand in the water did not mix together like the salt and the water did. The salt immediately went, remember our experiment about a week ago, where the salt water is a homogeneous mixture, where it was evenly distributed throughout. Well, the salt and the liquid combined to form a homogeneous, while the sand and the water did not. So we could filter easily. We could filter the sand out because the particles were so big, but the particles are a whole lot smaller. So it was able to dissolve into the liquid where the sand was not. So communicate your information. Did your results support your hypothesis? Explain why or why not. Number 2, would any of the tools you used be effective at removing a liquid if you added liquid to the mixture? Explain that. That's an interesting one. Do you think the magnet would have been able to separate a liquid from another liquid? How about the strainer separating another liquid to a liquid? Those first two, probably not. Now when you put the towel into the strainer and you had like the coffee filter or the towel being another filter, some of these liquids that have a very big molecule, unlike water has a very small molecule. But some of these strainers with big molecule things like, olive oil, that might be something to test. And here I'm going to take a drink of my solution. My tea, which is a liquid solid homogeneous solution, because you have the tea leaves that have dissolved into the water, and then you have the sugar that's also dissolved evenly through the water. That's a good homogeneous solution. So if you want to do this experiment yourself and you have the things that are necessary here, unless you have parental supervision, I would suggest skipping the part with the iron fillings because, like I said earlier, that could be dangerous if you breathe wrong or sneeze or something, and the little filings get in your eye and irritate you. You wouldn't want to do that. But as far as the sand and the salt and the water and evaporating goes, that's something that you could easily at home do. So that would be the end of this lab report. Again, dojo me any questions that you might have about this. You can email them to me. I've got my new phone number that I posted up on Dojo. If you have questions about any of this, you can contact me in 3 different ways, and I'll be happy to respond. So you made me forget my part here. My cameraman is going off script. So anyway, until next time, wash your hands.